against the former CBN governor. He pleaded not guilty and was granted bail by Justice Hamza Muazu on November 22, 2023. The 20-count charge includes fraudulent award of contracts to Emefiele's wife, Omoile Margaret, his brother-in-law, Omoile Macombo, and other associates. Staying in Nigeria, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has petitioned the Court of Appeal to overturn a no-case ruling that a lower court had issued on December 7, 2023, regarding an alleged 4 billion naira fraud against former PDP chairman in the state, Tanko Beji, and former governor of Niger, Babangida Aliyu. The commission filed a fresh 7-count charge accusing Beji Aliyu and former Commissioner for Environment and Chief of Staff Umaru Muhammad Nasco of conspiracy, abetment, and criminal breach of trust before retired Justice Aliyu Mayaki. The EFCC spokesperson, Dele Oyewale, adds that the commission was optimistic that the Court of Appeal will do no justice to the appeal. Away from that, the Nigerian President, Bola Tinubu, has described the Federal Aviation Authority of Nigeria, FAN headquarters, be relocated from Abuja to Lagos. According to a memo dated January 15, and addressed to the Managing Director of FAN, Olubunmi Kuku, the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development directed that the headquarters of the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, FAN, should be relocated from Abuja to Lagos. He adds that consequent upon the request for relocation, they should provide the implication of the relocation to the management. Earlier, the federal government announced the relocation of critical units in the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, in Abuja to its branch in Lagos. The Oyo State government, southwest Nigeria, has reported that the death toll resulting from the Tuesday explosion in Ibadan, the state capital, has increased to 5. The explosion caused extensive damage to numerous houses within a 14-kilometer radius. On Tuesday night, Governor Seyi Makinde provided an update stating that 2 deaths occurred on the day of the incident, with an additional victim succumbing to injuries in the hospital on Wednesday. In the aftermath of the blast, 7 individuals sustained injuries in the Bodija area of Ibadan. And now let's turn attentions to security matters. Residents of 10 communities in the Bungudu local government area of Zamfara State, northern Nigeria, have fled their homes for fear of being attacked by a notorious bandit leader, Dan Nagala, who earlier sent attack threats to them. The affected villages are Gidansoro, Maje, Fandahaki, Hayindankaro, Doka, Danganjim, Galmuwar Hanu, Dankatsina, Dalkwalge, and Gidan Arne. The residents fled their homes following a recent operation carried out by soldiers of the Operation Hadarim Daji unit. The operatives on Tuesday stormed the famous Dambasa Buzaya forest and recovered a large number of cows allegedly stolen and kept by Dan Nagala. Former chairman for the prosecution of armed banditry-related offenses in Zamfara, Dr. Sani Abdullahi Shinkafi, was on the news earlier and shared his thoughts on this.
Well, Nagala is one of the notorious bandits who reside between Maru local government and Bungudu local government forest, with its large numbers of bandits who he terrorized the area of Gada, Maru local government, and Sado axis, and even on some part of Kauranamo axis. He has been in this armed banditry and criminality for more than a decade. So these 10 communities and other even community within the vicinity have flew out of that district for the fear of his nefarious activities, because he's one of the heartless and the most ungodly, notorious armed bandit kingpin. And the Operation Hadarin Daji went on such operation in their hideout. They were able to intercept some of the cattle which was rustled by this armed bandit. And for the fear of the attack, then the communities around that vicinity has left to no option than to flee from their homes because they know it's very heartless and it's ungodly.
At least 9 people have been killed in Nigeria's north central just weeks after a flare-up in intercommunal attacks left nearly 200 dead. Officials said the victims died in 3 attacks on Tuesday and Wednesday in the Bokos district of Plateau State, a region plagued for years by religious and ethnic tensions. Gunshots were heard across farmland behind Plateau State University, Bokos campus, and 3 bodies were recovered. On Tuesday, another man was killed in Botari Company village. Troops of Operation Weststroke, in collaboration with the police and other security agencies, have rescued 9 kidnapped victims and arrested 2 suspects in Benue State, Nigeria's north central region. The force commander, Major General Sunday Igbonuwanhia, disclosed these to journalists on Thursday in Makurdi. He said the troops rescued the victims and arrested the suspects during an operation on Tuesday at Owukpa Forest in Ogadibo local government area of the state. He also asked that the rescued victims comprised 8 females and a male. And now to post-election litigations. In just a few hours for the Supreme Court to deliver judgments in Delta State governorship election appeal, the political atmosphere in the state has remained calm. Correspondent Austin Ozu reports that popular expectations is a judgment that will reflect the good of the people. He reports.
The affirmation of Sheriff Oborewore by the Election Petition Tribunal and the Court of Appeal as duly elected governor of Delta State was challenged by the governorship candidates of the APC, Ovie Omoile, Kenneth Gbagi of the SDP, and Kempela of the Labour Party. Dissatisfied, the legal tussle was taken to the country's highest courts, which reserved its judgment. Are residents of the state aware that the judgment day is here?
No, I'm not aware. I'm not aware. I'm not a politician. I'm not a politician. The matter is in the court. But I'm not aware is that it's tomorrow that are giving judgment. My likely opinion is let Supreme Court do the normal work.
Executive Assistant on Rotation and Communications to the state governor said the state is calm, waiting for the outcome of the Supreme Court judgment.
Let us know who won the election. They voted massively for Governor Sheriff Oborewore in Delta State. And so you can see that's where the whole atmosphere is calm. There is no any part of the state where there are agitations or people, preparing to riot or anything. What they are waiting for tomorrow is celebration galore.
The South-South chairman of the Labour Party believes the judgment of the Supreme Court will be in the best interest of the people.
We are sure that something good will come out of the Supreme Court. We're looking forward to it. We didn't go to court just for the going sake. We went to court hoping that our candidate will be declared as the governor of Delta State.
Chairman, Inter-Party Advisory Council Delta State Chapter, say efforts have been made to ensure the state remains peaceful.
For the fact that one of your sons did not do well, does not stop you from celebrating another of your son. It's not partisan, it's not anti-party, it's not creating enmity. Why? Because we're all Deltas before we became member of every other political party. So we have always encouraged everybody as IPAC. Peace and security is our watchword. We want peace in Delta State. We want calmness. We have held a meeting prior to this day, and I've told all political parties, go and talk to your people. We don't want violence in Delta. We don't want rancor in Delta. We don't want anything that is not of normal in Delta.
Political bigwigs from the state are already in Abuja to witness the court proceedings, while various political supporters in the state are expressing diverse shades of assurance of victory. In Asaba for News Central, I'm Austin Ozu.
And now to health matters. The National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control has doused fear of the alleged influx of anti-malaria drugs in the Nigerian market. The agency says while there is prevalence as evident in most developing nations like Nigeria, the proportions remain under control. News Central's Adeshewa Odushoga reports.
Just when Nigeria's healthcare system is dealing with outbreaks of diseases and the exodus of its personnel, the sector is facing an even bigger challenge. While malaria is responsible for more than 400,000 deaths in sub-Saharan Africa every year, Nigeria accounts for a higher percentage of the burden due to its size and the lack of funding. But there is a bigger issue here. There is an alleged influx of counterfeit anti-malarial drugs in the Nigerian market, killing 267,000 people every year. Amidst this report, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, in an interview with News Central TV, clears the air.
Every drug that comes into Nigeria is being tested, and whatever test method we apply in that drug laboratory at Yaba, it is according to international standard. And if we pronounce any drug to be genuine and not to be counterfeit and the original one, and it meets all the specification, that drug actually meets those specifications. And anyone that didn't meet those specifications is direct destruction.
A report in Ado Bayero University Kano's Journal of Basic and Clinical Sciences 2017 suggested that between 41 and 50% of drugs in Nigeria were substandard. The World Health Organization says 1 in 10 medical products circulating in developing nations is also substandard.
These medications may contain incorrect ingredients, improper dosages, or even toxic substances. In sub-Saharan Africa, where access to healthcare is already limited, the presence of counterfeit drugs exacerbates the existing health challenges. The widespread availability of these fake drugs or medications undermines the efforts to control diseases like malaria and other chronic illnesses.
Some fake products can come in. How do they come in? They come in through a lot of these things. Either they do not record them or register them as medicines.
While the dangers of fake anti-malarial drugs have now been established and the fears of high prevalence in the Nigerian market doused, concerned agencies are expected to intensify control by guarding the market to avoid penetration of counterfeit products. In Lagos for News Central, Adeshawa Odushoga.
You're watching News Central now. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. There is an urgent need to reduce the number of zero-dose children in Nigeria by 15% in 2024 and 80% by the end of 2028. And this was a submission made by the Pediatric Association of Nigeria at this 55th Scientific Conference in Lagos. Key stakeholders in Nigeria's health sector present at the event made a general consensus to take urgent actions in improving vaccine coverage across the country. News Central's Omoile Margaret completes this report.
According to the World Health Organization and UNICEF, Nigeria accounts for about 6.2 million zero-dose children, and it is one of the 6 countries that account for half of all zero-dose children globally. To reach these children with life-saving vaccines, especially for those in rural areas, the Pediatric Association of Nigeria, at its 55th annual scientific conference, emphasized the need to start taking urgent actions. Themed beyond strategies and goals, reaching every Nigerian child with optimal care, pediatricians in Nigeria believe it is time to go beyond talk and create a productive avenue to identify high-impact, low-cost policies and implementation strategies to providing every child in Nigeria with optimal care.
Just like in many other things, there will remain that core number of children that are so hard to reach. So we are trying to reach these children, and that's why we're having this conference to answer the question, what else can we do to ensure that every child, irrespective of their location, irrespective of whatever factors we want to consider get health care. We want to ensure that every child is a name, not just a number. So that's why we're having this conference. I hope that by the end of this conference, we're able to come up with pragmatic solutions as to what to do.
If we're talking about zero-dose children, we want to ensure that our policies will ensure that those children get immunized. We're not just talking about the numbers. We want that number to be reduced to zero. So we want to move from zero-dose children to children who have received vaccinations, and we don't want to talk about that anymore. At any time a child visits any primary care center or any health center, that child's immunization status is updated, and if there are vaccines that they've missed, an opportunity is created for the child to get that vaccine immediately.
However, the fallout of zero-dose children is a high mortality rate in the country. Hence the call on the government by key health stakeholders to take a holistic approach in providing lasting solutions to reduce the indices drastically.
We know there's a lot of equity issues in the country, and it needs to be tackled from many different areas. So we talk about the health sector, which is one part, but I believe we also need to look broader to include education, nutrition, child protection. There's a multifaceted approach that needs to be taken to make sure that the numbers are reduced and also in a sustainable way.
Experts in the Nigerian health sector, however, believe improving vaccination coverage across the country can be achieved if there is proper monitoring activities at all levels, particularly in the state, local government areas and wards. This can in turn bring Nigeria back on track in achieving the target for WHO's immunization agenda for 2030. In Lagos for News Central, Omolola Ololade.
Staying in West Africa, security forces in Guinea on Thursday raided a journalist rally and made several arrests in the suburbs of the capital, Conakry, during a protest against media restrictions. Now, journalists had gathered at the press house, where meetings and media conferences are usually held in preparation for a day of demonstrations against restrictions on press freedom and internet access. For several weeks, access to the internet has been severely limited in the West African nation, which has been ruled by military leaders since 2021 coup. Authorities have also imposed restrictions on non-official media, with social networks and private radio stations cut off, news websites interrupted or suspended, and journalists assaulted or arrested. Coming up, South African president arrives in Kampala for 19th Non-Aligned Movement Summit. We'll bring you details of this when we get back. Stay with us. The news continues in Southern Africa, where South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has arrived in Kampala, Uganda, to join other leaders for the 19th Non-Aligned Movement Summit, which is being held in Uganda capital, Kampala. This year, under the theme of deepening cooperation for shared global affluence, leaders from 93 states will discuss reforms of the United Nations, climate change and global debt crisis. Delegates from Arab nations are pushing for discussions on Gaza and expressed that the group must make a political declaration on war between Israel and Palestinian militant group Hamas. While delegations from Somalia say they need to support to maintain its territorial integrity, 93 out of the 120 nations are represented in Kampala for the 19th summit of the movement. In East Africa, at least one person has been killed and 5 others wounded after being shot by live rounds in post-election violence in the Comoros. In Moroni, the capital, emergency room head at the El Maruf Hospital, Dr. Jabiru Ibrahim, says a 21-year-old has been fatally wounded. This comes as the post-election crisis in the Comoros intensified with the first reported death in street violence and a call from the opposition for a national day of protest on Friday against the masquerade of the president Azali Assoumani's victory.
Au fait, pour la journée d'aujourd'hui, on a 7 admissions par les manifestations. dont un petit enfant de 7 ans qui n'est pas grièvement blessé parce qu'on l'a fait retourner à domicile. Mais les 6, c'est probablement par balle. Et il y a un mort, comme vous venez de le dire, un traumatisme crânien grave, probablement par balle.
Meantime, Comoros presidential opposition candidate Daouda Abdallah Mohamed says there are against any form of violence, but in relation to these spontaneous movements, they salute the courage of these young people who have expressed their discontent. The Comoros opposition rejected the re-election of Aswamani, a former military ruler, alleging large-scale fraud and demanded these votes be annulled. Riding the wave of discontent, the defeated challengers called for a national day of protest against the electoral masquerade to be held Friday after weekly Muslim prayers.
Vous savez, nous, en tant que politiques, nous sommes contre de toute forme de violence. Mais par rapport à ce mouvement spontané, que je salue le courage de ces jeunes qui ont manifesté leur mécontentement et qu'aujourd'hui, nous sommes arrivés là. Pourquoi? Parce que la CENI a publié des résultats qui ne sont pas conformes à la réalité des choses. Et que malheureusement, les autorités, au lieu de trouver une solution, mais ils ont fait descendre l'armée pour réprimer ces jeunes. Je pense que la responsabilité de la CENI est engagée dans cette affaire. Très engagée parce qu'ils ont pris une lourde responsabilité de publier des résultats qui ne reflètent pas la réalité, mais aussi qui ont créé des troubles dans le pays, que personne n'avait souhaité ça. Et des autres, parce qu'aujourd'hui, si on regarde ces résultats-là, comment on peut comprendre dans une élection couplée? Vous votez en même temps le gouverneur et le président de la République. Et que ceux qui ont voté le gouverneur à la Grande Comore, 125 000. Et quand on regarde ceux qui ont voté le président sur le plan national, 55 000. Comment on peut comprendre? Parce qu'il y a eu des bourrages, ils ont fraudé, déjà ils ne savent même pas le faire. Donc,
U.S. Special Envoy Mike Hammer reaffirmed American support for the Federal Republic of Somalia's sovereignty and territorial integrity in a development that highlights American policy in the midst of a brewing diplomatic dispute in the Horn of Africa. Hammer made this clear when he spoke at the 42nd Extraordinary Assembly of IGAD Heads of State and Government in Kampala. This was a significant move considering the delicate nature of the ongoing Memorandum of Understanding MOU between Ethiopia and Somalia. Hammer also acknowledged Somaliland as part of Somalia. The MOU has proven to be a contentious matter since it was viewed by Ethiopia, Somalia and Somaliland as possibly infringing upon Somalia's territorial integrity. Now, tensions between Ethiopia and Somalia have escalated as a result of the controversial agreements which centers on coastline area in Somaliland. The United States Department announced U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will travel to Cape Verde, Ivory Coast, Nigeria and Angola next week on his 4th trip to the African continent. This trip comes after 17 cabinet-level official visits last year as a follow-up to the 2022 U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit in Washington. President Joe Biden has also expressed his desire to visit Africa this year, but no definite plans have been announced. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said Blinken's 6-day trip will highlight how the United States has accelerated the U.S.-Africa partnership since the summit, including areas such as climate, food, and health security. You're watching News Central now, and still ahead, Houthi rebels claim attack on U.S. ship in the Gulf of Aden. We'll bring you details of these and more after the break. Stay with us.
Self
Away from the African continent, families of the victims in the May 2022 Robb Elementary School shooting in Uvalde, Texas, arrived for a press conference after the U.S. Department of Justice releases a report highlighting critical failures in law enforcement's botched response to the massacre. 19 young children and 2 teachers were killed when a teenage gunman went on a rampage. The Justice Department reported on Thursday that there was critical failures by Texas law enforcement who waited until 21 people had been killed by a mass shooter at a school before finally intervening.
I hope that the failures end today and that local officials do what wasn't done that day, do right by the victims and survivors of Robb Elementary, terminations, criminal prosecutions. And our state and federal government enact sensible gun laws, because Robb Elementary began the day an 18-year-old was allowed to purchase an AR-15.
We pay in these officers, and then you want us to trust them with our families when they're getting paid to do nothing?
And it was clear not just that the DOJ has taken this investigation very seriously, but that the Attorney General himself, I think you saw it, has expressed great empathy, and that's also very appreciated by the families. There are limitations, though. These families didn't need a 400 or 500-page government report to learn that law enforcement failed them in a historic way.
Yemeni Houthi rebels claim they have carried out a mass missile strike on a U.S. ship in the Gulf of Aden. Houthi military spokesman Yahya Sari says in a statement that their forces had attacked the Chem Ranger ship with several appropriate naval missiles, resulting in direct hits. It did not give a time or other details of the latest attack in the international shipping lanes. Houthi aggression against vessels in the Red Sea has led to strikes in Yemen by U.S. and British forces, with the United States reporting its latest attack on the Houthi targets on Thursday.
نفذت القوات البحرية في القوات المسلحة اليمنية عملية استهداف لسفينة كيم رينجر الأمريكية في خليج عدن، وذلك بصواريخ بحرية مناسبة، وكانت الإصابة مباشرة بفضل الله. إن القوات المسلحة اليمنية تؤكد أن الرد على الاعتداءات الأمريكية والبريطانية قادم لا محالة، وأن أي اعتداء جديد لن يبقى دون رد وعقاب.
And on to business stories. The World Bank and some of the world's leading economies have warned that prolonged conflict in the Red Sea and escalated tensions across the Middle East risk having devastating effect on the global economy, reigniting inflation and disrupting energy supplies. In a chat with analysts at STIRS, News Central's Perpetual Fasome Peter examines the risks and opportunities the conflict presents to Africa and more specifically Nigeria. Her reports.
Bank says the Middle East crisis with the war in Ukraine has created real dangers. Analysts have also identified risks such as higher interest rates, lower growth, persistent inflation, and greater geopolitical uncertainty, with real impact on Nigeria and other sub-Saharan African countries.
So it's twofold. First, the impact on shipping costs, shipping of oil and energy commodities, and also the fact that if other countries get involved, then their oil supplies could be jeopardized or damaged, and we could see reduced oil supply in the global market. For countries like Nigeria, Angola, that are oil and gas producing countries, higher prices are an opportunity to make more money from oil exports if they can ramp up production. The only issue there is Nigeria and Angola, as we know, have had issues with oil production. On the other hand, it also means higher fuel prices, so higher costs of petrol, diesel, cooking gas, and kerosene prices. For consumers, it's not good news because higher prices, obviously, with inflation in Nigeria, 28.9%, it means that there's even a greater risk of much higher inflation.
Beyond the impact on energy prices, an escalation could also impact food security in this region.
When you don't have those imports coming in at the rates they normally do because of unrest in that area, you are then likely to have higher food prices because two things normally happen. First, if you are to do business along that area of unrest, you're going to have higher insurance costs for those ships that are passing through there. If you don't pass through there and you're going to pass the long way, so passing the long way meaning going around West Africa, the Cape of Good Hope, what is going to happen is that you're going to add about 9 days to the journey, and you're going to add a cost of several tens of thousands of dollars as well to every shipment. Now, again, that translates to higher costs. And African inflation last year, I think was about 10% or so average across the continent. That is very, very high. And if those numbers don't come down soon, you're going to have people who are already struggling just to get the basics.
Since 2020, the world has faced 2 global shocks, with the Middle East crisis making it 3. This is a wake-up call for countries to build resilience to such external shocks.
The government is supposed to have policies in place that should help it to be able to address certain external shocks, maybe not all of them, but address them to an extent, so that the citizens are not exposed to the full weight of those external shocks. But our government has not been able to do that over time. The main structural problem with Nigeria and Africa is productivity. So those productivity issues around agriculture and outside agriculture as well, manufacturing and the like, those need to be addressed.
The past few years have taught us that crises can and do happen. Hence, governments at all levels must develop structures that will give them headroom to maneuver them. In Lagos, for News Central, I am Perpetua Fasami Peter.
For more on business news, let's now join our business desk.
In business, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has granted Kenya a $941 million lending boost, providing much-needed relief to the country as it grapples with financial pressures. Of this amount, $624.5 million will be immediately disbursed under the Extended Fund Facility EFF and Extended Credit Facility ECF programs, and an additional $60.2 million will be released under the Resilience and Sustainability Facility RSF arrangement. With its approval, the IMF's total funding commitment to Kenya across all 3 facilities now exceeds $4.4 billion. The IMF stated that Kenya's growth has remained resilient despite various challenges, and these arrangements will support the government's efforts to maintain macroeconomic stability. The funds will assist Kenya in addressing liquidity challenges and meeting the maturity of its $2 billion Eurobond in June, while also alleviating the strain caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change-induced droughts, and currency depreciation. The approval follows a staff-level agreement reached with Kenyan officials in November. As Ghana's debt restructuring talks near completion, the government is confronted with a new challenge. It must demonstrate to investors its ability to control spending while undergoing a debt revamp, following a default on around $20 billion of international bonds and loans in 2022. However, with an upcoming election this December, the ruling party is under pressure to increase spending on voter priorities. This has raised concerns among some investors that the election could lead to wider budget deficits, potentially hampering progress in debt restructuring. Ghana has a history of overspending during election years, and rebuilding trust with investors requires fiscal consolidation. The debt restructuring process could be further complicated if the World Bank downgrades Ghana's income classification level, potentially leading to larger haircuts for bondholders. And finally, the recent currency turmoil on the parallel market is temporary and driven by increased demand for US dollars at the end of the year, according to Zimbabwe's central bank governor. The volatility is largely confidence-related as people desire to hold foreign currency. Zimbabwe has been struggling to stabilize its currency since its reintroduction in 2019, with significant losses against the dollar on both the official and parallel markets. Citizens prefer using the US dollar for transactions, leading to inflation due to exchange rate movements. The governor urged businesses to support the local currency and dismissed concerns about declining dollar inflows, citing the potential of new export minerals like lithium to compensate for decreases in other commodities.
In the world of sport, Nigeria took a huge step towards reaching the last of 16 at the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations with a 1-0 win over host Ivory Coast in Group A. The match's key moment came in the 55th minute after Usman caught Victor Osimhen in the box. That allowed William Trust Ekong to...
Even today, have players with quality for playing attack, like Samuel and look, they defended a lot. They believe, okay, today I must defend more than before. I need to help my team. When you can.
But this game, we needed to make a statement. We needed to make a statement win, and for me, it's always important to be focused from the start of the whistle to the end of the game. Playing against a team like Ivory Coast, you have to be on top of your game, and I'm really happy the boys carry out this plan well.
Victor was the first man to take it. He looked at me, I said, yes, of course, I'll take it. And the teammates wish me well.
Sometimes I feel so happy when my fans are so happy too. Like, I really wish well for Nigeria. Like, I really wish for my country, so I wanted to be happy.
Fulfilled, and also, everyone is happy that we got a win against the host Ivory Coast. So I think it puts us in a good position. Now we have to focus on the next game.
Against the host nation. But as a team, I think we all believe that we can do it. And I think this is the start.
And joining us from Côte d'Ivoire is our sports correspondent, Favor Itwa. Favor, good morning from here.
Yes, good morning from here, live in Abidjan.
I mean, Thursday's win was a big one for Nigeria. What's the mood like this morning in Abidjan?
I mean, the mood is currently reflecting on my face too. When you look at what Nigeria did yesterday, it was a peaceful night in Abidjan as the host nation went to sleep. You know, they did not have any cause to, cause noise in the streets of Abidjan, and no thanks to what the Super Eagles of Nigeria did. So right now, the fans of the Super Eagles, the mood in camp is so fantastic. A lot of persons are looking at what has happened as one of the best games the Super Eagles have played in the last few months, especially some are even dated as far back as a year ago. Not forgetting that Super Eagles have not won in the last 4 matches. This is the first win in 5, and that's to show you how much of importance this victory is to the Nigerian side. Yes, I was going to ask you that, Favor, regarding this win for Nigeria. Like you rightly mentioned, it's been one coming in a long while. Now, with this display on Thursday, do you see them being a threat to other teams? I think this win for Nigeria has sent a message to other African teams, and every nation that will probably face the Super Eagles of Nigeria would prepare well to face them. I mean, looking at the players in the squad, they all played their heart out. They were good on the day. In fact, every unit accounted for the Super Eagles of Nigeria, from the goalkeeping department to the defense. And I just hope that the Super Eagles will also move on from this win. All right, Favor. Right, I mean, looking at the game, of Thursday, many are saying if not for the penalty, there would have been no victory for Nigeria. What do you... Penalties are part of any game. I don't think that would be saying that if not for the penalty, Nigeria would not have won. They brought in their tactics, they brought in their A game, and playing in the Nations Cup, you don't need to play beautifully. Even though, yes, of course, they were fantastic on the day. Every department worked well for the team. You look at the goalkeeper; he made quite a number of saves. The defenders also ensured that the balls do not get past them to the goalkeeper. I mean, it would be unfair to say that the Super Eagles won via penalty, and if not for penalty, I mean, we've seen how penalties have decided games. Jose Mourinho, one of the top coaches in the world, is always fond of saying that you can actually win dirty. Winning dirty is 1-0. I mean, 1-0 is enough. It's 3 points, and I think that's what we should be talking about, of how the tactics work. We played a 3-5-2 formation. 3 defenders. We also had 5 defenders, but when they're going forward on points and not about impressing anyone at the moment, get the result done. That's what Nigerians want. Well, we're looking forward to Nigeria winning more games in this competition. Thank you so much for your time on the news. Favor Itwa, our correspondent right there live in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Ghana coach Chris Hugton has expressed frustration following Ghana's 2-2 draw with
a lot of faith in him. I have to make decisions on the bench for what I see. And my feeling is that there are a lot of emotions in the game. And for those who know Osman, he's a very committed, not only a very committed player, but an honest player. And I thought, at that moment, once he'd made a mistake.
And that's all on the news at this hour. But before we go, let's take a look again at some of the major stories. Ex-CBN Governor Emefiele to be arraigned on amended 20-count charge. U.S. Secretary of State set for four-nation Africa tour. And finally, we told you that one person has died, 25 others injured in post-election clash in Comoros. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adeduba.